Hi, I'm Misso.
Hi, I'm G.
And we're the Watching Dead.
So, we have just finished redoing the commentary for Season 1 of The Walking Dead.
Yep.
And now here we are, we're going to do the Season 1 recap, talk about some major things that happened, go into a little bit more detail, but not too much. So let's start it off. Misso, what was something that you really want to talk about, geek out a little bit about?
I would really like to talk about the echoes of sentience.
Okay, so I have this theory that we actually are seeing over the course of the zombie apocalypse. We're seeing multiple generations of this plague play out. And I think that the first generation, the one that has affected all of the people initially,
Right.
is actually closer to a version of rabies in that it is spread by direct contact with the mucous membranes, biting. I think the walkers that we see that are able to use tools or are able to interact in a more human fashion.
Right.
What with, they have the big rock or brick or whatever that they use to shatter the glass at the department store. And then you have them scaling the walls.
Right. And even such things as the little girl in the beginning
little girl
picks up the bear.
Picking up the stuffed animal.
And then we have like the walker, the crawler, and the park.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to me, it's kind of like she's looking at Rick. I mean, she doesn't have legs. You know, she's going along, and she's just like looking up at him, saying, "Kill me."
Yeah, there is definite hints of some kind of emotion. Some of these walkers do seem to have a definite echo of who they were, and we see this quite clearly with Amy. When she reanimates.
Right.
She's reaching out to Andrea, and it could be because she's a walker now and she wants to eat Andrea, but the touch is very gentle.
Right.
And, later when we see walkers reanimate, they don't come back so weak. So we're dealing with something here. There seems to be, among this first generation, some of them retain some degree of sentience.
Right.
So it's not every walker has these qualities. And I think that as the plague carries on, the disease itself mutates and becomes less like rabies, where it is spread by direct bite. I think at some point it mutates and becomes airborne. I think the disease mutates, and the mutation causes the next generation of walkers to retain less sentience. So if you had somebody who had the intelligence and all like Milton, I think had he not been, destroyed, he might have been fairly clever for a walker.
True that. Good point.
For a period of time.
Right.
And we don't know because we don't have a baseline. There's no one sitting there measuring this stuff because everybody's too busy surviving.
Yeah.
And they don't have me in there because this is the kind of shit I would do. Because I am that big a nerd. But
that's cool though.
There's actually a real world zombie disease.
Yeah,
the thing with the ants.
Yeah,
where the thing infects the ant and then gets it to go and stand on a blade of grass until a bird eats it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not a bird. Maybe it's another insect like a butterfly or something. Anyway, then something eats the ant and then it takes control of that. And then it's got a really weird life cycle.
Yes.
But the zombie thing controls the host and forces it to behave in certain ways.
how long has Rick been in the coma, do we think?
Yeah.
Jenner, in one of his videotapes, said that it had been 194 days, I think, since wildfire was declared. And it was 63 days since it went global, abruptly went worldwide.
Yeah.
So that's roughly, 6.5 months based on,
it's
the 194 days.
It's between 5.5, 6 months for the 194. And then since they're abruptly going global, we're talking, that's like a little over 2 months. So we have a bound now on kind of the lower bounds on how long Rick could have been out.
Right. There are, I guess, several factors, that could also be considered. I know at some point you were talking about the, like the hair growth. And the fact that you can go into the hair growth part. I didn't. I don't know anything about that.
I know weird things.
I know you did some research on that.
Well, it's not exactly I did research.
Well, yeah,
but I know weird things.
That's cool.
Okay, if we say that Rick went into his coma before wildfire,
yes,
it could not have been too long before wildfire.
Right.
So we're talking plus 2 weeks. So that would give us slightly over 200 days that he was out. If we say he had to have gone down before wildfire.
Right.
Thing is, we know that wildfire was probably before the whole thing started to really spread very quickly, because that's how epidemics start. They will be in a small area spreading slowly, and then all of a sudden it will.
Yeah.
So we have an upper bound on Rick's coma of around 6 months.
Yeah.
And we have a lower bound of 2 months. Because then if he went right before it went global, then he was only out for 2 months.
Right. To the 63 days, excuse me.
Yeah.
That, I guess, Rick could have been shot. He could have been
shot anywhere
in that time.
Yeah, anywhere in that 130 days.
Yeah, okay.
It could have happened.
Yeah, all right.
So we have the upper bound of, we'll say 215 days.
Yeah.
Before we see that video from Jenner. So we'll assume that Rick was out of the coma. Let's see, that's probably 3 days.
Yeah. Maybe.
So we'd say 212 days that Rick was in the coma. That is kind of our absolute upper. That's the lowest upper bound we can have.
Yeah.
Now the lowest lower bound we can have is the 63 days. Because if it abruptly went global, that's going to be on the news. Rick wouldn't have woken up and been like, oh shit, yeah, this was I know kind of what's going on. This must be that zombie thing they was talking about.
Right, yeah.
So he wouldn't have been completely clueless.
Yeah.
So we've got a plus minus of about 130 days. However, he could not have been in the coma much longer than, I'd say, 3 months.
Yeah.
So I'd say he was out, no more than maybe 90 to 100 days before it went global. And, people are like, oh, well, wildfire, that means it was spreading like wildfire. No, that could have just been the random code name they came up with.
Right.
Do you know what the word for nuclear status was in the UK? For the likelihood of a nuclear attack?
Puppies.
Bikini. I'm not kidding. And no, in the UK, it was bikini, and a computer picked a random word from the dictionary.
Wow.
Because they didn't want it to be easy for the Soviets to guess what they were setting their status to. So.
All right, then.
But
going back to...
so wildfire could have, like I said, just been selected at random.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it was spreading by wildfire. It could be indicative, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah. So Rick in the coma. So now we have this from Jenner. We have this date range.
Uh-huh.
We also have to look at the facial hair growth. Rick has brown hair.
Uh-huh.
And he has bluish eyes.
Yes.
Like he's got average complexion. He's not especially dark complected. He's not especially light complected.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gonna probably have the average testosterone level for a man with dark hair.
Mm-hmm.
And for that amount of facial hair, that is about 4 to 6 weeks. But we know he was clean shaven when he went into the coma. He comes out. Okay, so even if we assume metabolic slowdown due to loss of consciousness, the most I can put him is 12 weeks, which is 4 months.
And for people who can't move, people who are in comas, they have, when they're fully attended to, they have people that move them, flip them, switch sides, so that doesn't happen.
Could not have had severe muscle atrophy,
Right.
so he could not have been in that coma for very long.
Mm-mm.
And he could not have been in that bed prone for very long.
Right.
So...
because even, when he did get out of the bed, he fell over.
Yeah, he was stiff.
Yeah. But it really didn't take him long to be, to regain, walking.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
Yeah. So he obviously had not, had significant muscle atrophy in his legs.
Right.
And he was not troubled with massive bed sores.
Right.
He wasn't taking in a lot of nutrients. So that, again, also sets in another bound, because the body, even in a comatose state, can only survive a certain amount of time with no fuel before it says, screw it, I'm shutting down.
Yeah.
And you die. So again, we've got a bound here of probably no more than 100 days.
Yeah.
Probably no more than that. Which means that Lori is a whore.
See, that's the whole point of this conversation.
Yes! We did this to prove
the whole
mathematically
entire point
and scientifically that Lori is a whore.
Well, there's not going to be we have our set laws and all this good stuff that we can just turn to and say, okay, this is what happens. But when you're in a zombie apocalypse or any kind of craziness like that, it's just not going to work out that way. So you kind of have to make these determinations about what is bad, what's really bad, what's just unconscionable, whatever, and figure out how you're going to deal with those.
Yeah. They especially have to deal with this in season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they have to deal with God, I can't think of his name, but the kid, Randall. Randall.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see early shades of it in season 1 with
you have
with Shane beating the hell out of Ed.
Yeah.
Which yay on Shane for doing that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the whole group should have had a better way of dealing with Ed's behavior. They let him get away with far too much.
Oh, yeah, for so long.
Yeah, and then when it was a step too far, there was a gross overreaction.
Yeah. It was lovely. And, I mean, just super minor. Like, even when they're in the department store, and she's like, oh, I like this necklace, and Rick says, oh, take it. Was that, there's a cop right beside me. Is that considered looting? You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, I mean, there are some niceties and all.
Super minor to.
Yeah.
Beating your wife.
So we have to deal with, is something looting, or is it forgivable now?
Yes.
With earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, all the fun stuff that all of us North Americans have to put up with, because Europeans get the benefits of the jet stream or whatever that thing in the Atlantic is called.
Yes.
You guys get the benefits, we get the crap.
And,
And it would be the same way in a post-apocalyptic world.
Right. You either, it's like minor infractions, or like you say, controllable mischief, or that's it.
Yeah, because your provisions will run out. You have to constantly replenish them.
Right.
Which is why what Daryl does is so valuable, where he goes out ranging and hunting, and he's bringing back fresh meat, and that protein, that's vital.
Yes.
And that's part of why you always get to the point with him where he could be just as big an asshole as Merle. He's not, but he could be.
Yeah.
And he would still be worth keeping around, warts and all.
Yeah.
Because he brings something back. Anyway, so we're definitely looking forward to season 2 and to talking about a lot of the things with there.
Yep.
Season 1, very, very good.
Yep.
We have also proven mathematically and scientifically, bitch,
that Lori is a whore. Also, things like learn about stuff.
Yeah.
And think things out. Keep this in your mind so you don't get stuck in these situations like these guys do.
Yeah,
and Lori's a whore.
Lori's a whore. Also, I will be writing out my checklist and flowcharts and putting them on my website, gkmasterson.com, where you can download them. So that if you ever wake up in a hospital from a coma and you're not sure what's going on, there's a checklist. Figure out how to figure it out.
Check.
Yeah. It will be interesting. Anyway, so for now, I'm G.
I'm Misso.
And we're the Watching Dead.